Good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing on this kind of grey and miserable and rainy Friday afternoon? Certainly here in the UK. Hopefully, it's not grey, wet, and miserable wherever you are. Have I unmuted everything? Yes, looks like everything's working correctly. Please let me know if I need to adjust my levels on things. That feedback is always very, very much appreciated. Alright, yes, extra stream this week. It's been a crazy old week. Hello, Imon Economist. How are we doing? It's like I was saying, it's been a funny old week this week. I'm half lurking while I abuse my piano. I'm hoping in like a musical sense, um, not something more seedy. But each their own. I will not judge. I will not judge. But enjoy. Um, Yeah, this week's been an odd one. Where to start with this one? So I always knew it was going to be pretty busy, because my day job is, in theory, um, my day job is I work from home, but I sometimes have to go into the office in London, and it's not terribly often. And the nice thing about my work and the people I work with is that we only have to go into the office if there's a reason to go into the office. I mean, we can go into the office whenever we choose to, because some people just are more productive around people. But generally, it's a case of you go into the office if there is a client meeting or an extended meeting with lots of people, or actually you don't want to be staring at Microsoft Teams for 2 hours, 3 hours, etc. So I'm in the office from time to time, and sometimes I've got to go to other cities as well. Generally within the UK. I've not had to go internationally for work yet. But it was a big week, so I had to be doing 3 days in the office this week, in theory, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which is fine. I live kind of an hour and a bit from London, so it's not too bad getting in and out. A bit of rush hour traffic, it's not too bad. But generally, my work's meetings, if it's face to face, start at 10 rather than 9 to give people a bit more time to get into the office, which is nice. But I knew it was going to be busy because it makes my mornings more busy. My general daily routine, um, I'll kind of get up and get my daughter ready for nursery while my wife's getting ready for work, and then I'll get my daughter in the car. My wife drops her off on the way to work, and then I've got like an hour to get myself sorted. Um, that doesn't happen if I'm going to the office. So I need to get myself ready. I need to get my daughter ready, and then we need to try and get out the door on time. So I was already knew it was going to be busy, and then it was a busy week for my wife's work as well. So that's additional pressure. And it's like, okay, we can deal with this. We can deal with this. And then I'm not going to go into the details of this one. If you know, it's for obvious reasons, but um, so we had something of a family emergency on Tuesday, kind of a health scare on that one. So everything went out the window. So despite that big work week for myself and my wife, it's like, well, that's just done. So my work were really, really good about it, as was my wife's work. But running in that hospital to sort things, I was with looking after my daughter, and the whole thing went out the window on Tuesday. And again, I don't really want to talk about it much, but things are looking better. But we're not entirely out of the woods yet, and it's just there's this anxiety right now. But I was in work Wednesday, Thursday, because we're in a slightly better place there. But yeah, so that just kind of threw the whole week off, and then two kind of really, really busy days, and next week's pretty busy as well. And we'll see where we're at. But I thought, yeah, I thought I'd just kind of check in and see how things are going, how people are doing, because it is entirely possible, depending on how this whole family emergency thing goes. I may have to be flitting in and out and stuff, and I may be not be about as much online. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it's just kind of busy times, and it's juggling lots of things. Being an adult's freaking tough at times. It really is. You've got to get your own shit together, and kind of help out with other people's shit, not in like a laxative sense, but you know what I mean. It's tough sometimes. But yeah, so I thought I'd do an extra stream today just to kind of check in, see how we're doing. And we're not going to play any games on this one, just a kind of a general chat. And I might not do the whole 45 minutes. We shall see. So what's going on? Well, I'll start with on a lighter note after the whole kind of family emergency thing. Weird day on Wednesday. So I was slightly later into the office than I wanted to. I wasn't late for my meeting, but trains and the like, and the general kind of chaos. I was in a little later than I wanted to. But I got in. I spoke to one of my colleagues who immediately said, because normally if we have external clients in, they get lunch in, which is nice, and our office is quite nice. It's got a nice kind of canteen area that kind of looks out over some of London, so that's quite nice. We've been told we can't be in the kitchen for lunch today. We'll have to have lunch in the meeting room because there's a World War One reenactor coming in today. Like, I'm sorry, what? And let me be clear, I'm not going to talk about the details of my day job. We don't do World War One reenactment. We are not in that field. And it's like, what do you mean that reenactor is coming in? And someone knows someone who knows someone, and they thought it might be because it is almost Remembrance Day, the 11th of November, and I think they're wanting to, I don't necessarily bring people back into the office, but make being in the office a little bit more interesting. They knew someone who knew someone, and yeah, sure enough, that is exactly what happened. So we told the clients we were hosting, and we can't be in the kitchen because this is reenactor. And they said, no, we've got to go to the kitchen. So sure enough, we tropped down there. And there's a guy in full World War One uniform, big moustache, with a gun and pistols and grenades and all kinds of stuff. And yeah, the afternoon got derailed. We got the work done, but we took an extended lunch while we listened to him talking about all this and passing stuff round. Just like, here's the kind of knife you'd see on Peaky Blinders, and this is what the shrapnel from grenades and stuff like that would be like. I'll be shouted at by people. I need to get this right. They're not grenades. They are, because they're British, they are Mills bombs. They're not grenades. I'll get my wrist slapped for that one. Probably will my dad. Yes, that was a weird day. And then there were people who weren't in the office that day and said, oh yeah, how's the training going? And it's like, yeah, we're just right now showing them some guns. And I'm like, what do you mean there's guns in the office? And it's like, it was just a funny old day. But, it mixes it up a bit. Delivering, training is not always the most interesting thing in the world. So it mixes it up a bit. I finally got cleared to keep working from home exclusively for the next 6 months. It's nice being able to do it. It really is. It's kind of crass to say there were advantages to the pandemic, because the pandemic was freaking horrific and still is. But I am glad that it's opened the eyes of lots of organisations about the practicalities of working from home, and that actually a lot of people work very efficiently from home, and forcing people to come into an office where it is not necessarily required is a good thing. And there will always be some jobs that have to be done in the office, or jobs where time to time you'll need to be in the office. But the fact is, most people are trustworthy. And the fact is, if you're hiring someone who you don't trust to get on with work when you're not watching them, why have you hired them? Or are you just an asshole as an employer? So when I hear people who, oh yeah, we have to be in 2 days a week, not necessarily specific ones, not for a specific reason, but we just have to be in. It's like, you just don't trust your employees, or you fork out a huge amount of rent on that building and you've got a really long lease and you don't want it to be a ghost town. But it's not about their welfare and stuff, Of course, yeah, absolutely, you've got to touch base, and I think it is important, especially if you're completely remote, to, in appropriate occasions, touching base face to face is really important, because otherwise you do get very detached. I certainly had a time during the peak of the pandemic where we had a lot of change in the team I was working on. I was at a different job at the time, And when we came out of lockdown, I think I'd met under half of the people on my team face to face. So when we did actually have a face to face meeting, it was this oh, you don't look quite what I expected because I've only seen you from like the waist up and front on. I didn't know how tall or short you were. Yeah, it is strange times, but it is good that people are now trusted to do stuff. And I would say, from a very, very selfish perspective, it makes my day a lot easier working from home because I don't have to commute in. And financially, my God, I was living in Scotland and working in Glasgow during the peak of the pandemic, when we first went to working from home. So my commute, my train fare in and out of Glasgow wasn't the worst thing in the world, but looking back on it, it was not good. It was probably, if I was doing dailies, it was something like 15 quid a day, and there were ways you could do for monthly passes and stuff like that to take some of the price off, but it was expensive. There's no getting around that. And you have to be organised, you've got to make sure that you've got a lunch and stuff like that, or you're buying lunch at a supermarket and stuff like that, which adds up very quickly. But I'm very glad that in my current job, I'm officially a home worker, and therefore my travel into the office is paid for, and reasonable expenses exist. If I'm having to travel very early or very late, they pay for the food and stuff like that. So it makes a difference. But yeah, but the journey time as well. The one thing I miss about commuting regularly is I listen to a lot of audiobooks when I was commuting regularly. Less so now. I still try to, but it definitely made a difference, and it changes the way you work. And I'm just glad that I had a spare room in the house I was in before. Now I moved, I still have a spare room. When we bought this house, or when we were looking to buy this house, I was like, well, we've got to have, a bedroom for us, a bedroom for our little one, and I'm going to need an office because, there are a lot of people who work from like their living room counter or their kitchen table or stuff like that, or a desk in the corner of their bedroom and stuff like that. But it does something to the dynamic in your relationship with work. I like the fact that my work stays within these walls, and if I leave this spare room, which is my office, I'm gone from work. Now, admittedly, as I'm doing right now, I have my work laptop over here that you can't see, and I have my personal / side hustle's a bit harsh, but my writing stuff is over here, which I'm talking to you on right now. So admittedly, that's in the same place. But I like being able to walk away and leave work in the room if I want to. If it was spreading out into the kitchen, downstairs and stuff like that, it would be a very different, I think I'd have a different relationship with work. My creative computer, that is a very good way of terming it. Absolutely. So yeah, pandemic did funny things to working from home. There were links in my head here in terms of this tangent. But one of the things I've been doing recently, let's talk a little bit fierce for a minute. So last week? No, start of this week. Not sure. I'm losing track of time. Good grief, I'm losing track of time. I just recently released a new Little But Fierce mini add-on called Familiar Foes, which you can pick up if you'd like. I will chuck that in the chat. So I released that, and as a way of, it's something I wanted to release anyway because it felt like a very sensible thing to release in terms of, because it is based around making races available in Little But Fierce that I'm not allowed to include because of Wizards of the Coast copyright. So it is about including similar thematic creatures in your Little But Fierce game. So I released that, and I've got back to working on Blunderlings, which is the next big expansion, which I'm kind of hoping I can release before Christmas. That'd be really nice. That depends on when I can schedule the one-shot. But one of the other things I've had to do in going back to that is when I started that, I had an Adobe Creative Cloud subscription. I had one via my previous job. And that was great because I could edit PDFs. I could actually do a bit of tinkering with some video stuff, which was nice. And the big one on here is had access to Adobe fonts. which was brilliant. So it's like, oh, I want to create something. I want a cool font that does this, that, and the other. I could find it. I could use it. I could download it. I don't work for that company anymore. I thought, well, shall I get my own Adobe subscription, which I can get cheaper than most people can, because my wife's in education. So I could technically get the kind of student/teacher version, but that's still expensive. It's still something like $19 a month. It adds up really quickly, and the more you commit to that, the more you use that, the more you're kind of stuck with it. So what I decided to do for the time being is I'm not doing that. So I'm trying to see if I can go without that, because actually there are ways to edit PDFs. There are great bits of Mac software for doing video editing and adding some simple visual effects like animated banners and stuff like that. And fonts should not be a big issue, because there are plenty of paid and Creative Commons fonts that are out there that can be used. So one of the things I've had to do with Blunderlings is go back into my existing files and swap out fonts. So I've been trying to find things that are a close match for the fonts I originally had in there, and I've got something I'm pretty happy with. It hasn't changed it massively, because I work in it's not a great way of working. Or certainly, I think most people would say it's not a great way of working. It works for me. I write and do layout design at the same time. I can't just write on a blank sheet of paper and say, right, I've written the content, now I'm going to format it up. I do both at the same time, because it helps my creative flow. I get to see pages being created as I go. And with things like fonts and images and stuff like that, I find it kind of inspiring as I do it. That sounds really cheesy, but you know what I mean. It kind of gives me motivation as I work on that. But then the thing with swapping out the fonts then is, I thought, is a load of stuff going to move? Even if I get a font that looks visually similar, is it going to be like bigger, smaller, stuff like that? Now, fortunately, the text I use for the main body, I use the same font for all of them. I think I used Avenir for that. So it was just titles and stuff like that changed, and it didn't make a big difference, which was nice. But I had this fear that the second I swapped these fonts out, like, oh, that thing that nicely fit on that page before, it's now just slightly gone to the next page. And while logically you would say, well, that means just change some of the formatting and stuff, I would look at it and go, are there any words I can trim out to make that fit nicer? And I didn't want to have to go through that process. So fortunately, I didn't have to make a huge amount on it, but it was something I've been putting off since I got my new laptop. Was like, oh man, I'm going to go back into that stuff and change some of the fonts. And there are definitely products I've made where I now just don't have that font, and I've released that stuff. So if I want to go back and make changes to it, I either need to buy that font, which could be quite expensive, or swap it out for a new font, and then just like, oh look, version 2, everything looks different now. I don't mind doing that so much with the alpha beta content, that kind of stuff, because it's not out yet. But if I've actually released something, people have paid for it, and now suddenly I go, oh, like, it all looks completely different. I just kind of don't want to do that. As someone who has to write one-page summaries of business proposals, can I trim a word or two to make this a few lines? Oh my god, yes, I have that as well. Yeah, very much. Can I get this onto one page, or can I have one page be this and the back be that? Is there any ridiculous words I can remove here? Any adjectives? Any little tweaks I can make to formatting just to make that a little nicer? And it's ridiculous. You shouldn't have the words be influenced by the formatting, but it's real. It's a thing. There's no getting around it on that one. So I'm getting there with Blunderlings. Essentially what I need to do with Blunderlings now is so much of it is done. I need to wrap up some little bits of the finale of the pre-made adventure that comes with it. So it has a pre-made adventure, which is of a dungeon keeper, minions-y kind of vibe. And it's sort of broken up into 3 acts. So there is a railroady element to it in that sense. But you've got quite a bit of freedom of what you do within those acts. And it's literally just wrapping up some bits in Act 3 where I have some notes on, look, broadly speaking, if they do this, then this sort of thing should happen. If they do this other thing, this is kind of what should happen. And I just need to cement that stuff. And it's just a bit of detailed stuff that I've just been putting off doing. Then I need to do a difficulty level pass. I need to go through it and check that there are peaks and troughs in terms of difficulty of skill checks, and that they're appropriate to the level of the characters in this. And that's still something I'm still very much getting a feel for, because my brain kind of defaults to 5th edition DCs for stuff. And while Little But Fierce is based on 5th edition, it's just checking this stuff makes sense, because sometimes I will default back to 5th edition thinking, oh, I need to go, no. It's Little But Fierce. It's not quite, the numbers aren't quite the same, so something might be too hard or too easy or something like that. So I need to do that. And then I want to arrange a one-shot. And I've talked about this before. So because Blundlings includes the Scout class, which is the remade version of the Ranger, and I've played with that quite a lot. It's the class I have made the most changes for from the 5th edition version. I definitely want to do some playtesting with it. And I figure it would be a nice opportunity to do a streamed one-shot. Now, when I originally proposed this, someone else was going to host it, because I didn't have a streaming setup at the time. But I think it would be quite a nice challenge for me now to do all that, because I have a streaming setup where I can have music playing, and I can switch between different windows, and and all that jazz. I think it would be quite nice. One second. I think it would be quite nice. I'm not gouging my eyes out, just itchy eyes. It would be quite nice to run the one shot myself from a technical perspective. Now, it would be theatre of the mind, so I don't have to worry about things like Roll20 integration and stuff like that. But I'm looking forward to doing that, and I think that will be the big factor on whether it's pre or post Christmas. It might be post Christmas because of that, but I do want to run that one shot. That'd be a lot of fun. So yeah, we will see how we get on with that. What else? What else is going on? So I probably could have talked about this earlier in the week or last week, but something nice that's happening is I have actually not quite started, but I'm actually going to be getting to play some D&D. That is nice. I mostly since becoming a dad, I just haven't had the time to play D&D, which or any role-playing games for that matter, because I used to play in kind of a weekly game that was mostly remote, and then the second lockdown hit, which made everything definitely became remote, but then there was just a case of small child, and our little one is of an age, 3, almost 4, where bedtimes can be a struggle getting them down. And actually in this house the walls are thinner than the walls in our last house, so I need to be careful with volume of what I'm doing, and actually be able to commit to every week doing a 7 p.m. thing. That's difficult because her bedtime is 7 p.m, so that puts that on my wife, or I need to shift what I'm doing slightly accordingly. So getting into that routine, and especially with moving house and moving nurseries, and my wife starting a new job and all of that, it's we're at a stage now where I've settled into enough of a routine that actually I'm able to play in a campaign, which will be nice. And it's every fortnight, so every 2 weeks, but it'll be nice to actually be playing, because it's been far too long, and it's with a group of people I've not played with before. I was invited by a friend on Twitter who I've not met face to face, and interestingly, I've mentioned this before. I was a teacher, and now sort of teacher adjacent in what I do, but all the people playing are in education, so there's a very similar sort of nerdy background there, and any shop talk, we're all in the same shop or shop adjacent. So that's nice. It's a nice bunch of people. We've done a session 0 and a little bit of an introduction, the starting bits of the adventures, kind of setting the scene. And I'm excited about it. The thing that was odd about it, and the thing I didn't expect, is we did a little bit of the intro of it. Did the session 0, and then we did a little bit of intro and a little bit of scene setting and bits and pieces, but I don't have a character yet. I wasn't expecting that we'd actually do something with characters in that first one, because you generally wouldn't with the Session Zero. So I didn't know exactly what I was going to be. I had a feeling going in that I was going to play a wizard. Yeah, maybe. Certainly a pure spellcaster. That was the thing I wanted to do in this. And I've talked about it with BG3 characters as well. I never played a pure spellcaster before. I've played a cleric in a one-shot before. That was just a one-shot. And we started at quite a high level. I want to say we were like 10th level or 11th level, something like that. But I've never gone, let's start at level 1 and play a spellcaster. So I wanted to do that. But beyond that, I didn't really know what I was going to play. So it was this, I don't know how I'm going to react to this. I don't know how. And now I know a little bit more than you normally would in a Session Zero. It's going, well, what's going to be an interesting fit for this? And because the other players had some notions of their character, some very fleshed out, some very, very vague. It'll be interesting to see how they fit in. Because my originally thought, that's not how grammar works. My original thought is that I'd maybe be like a human wizard or something like that. But kind of because I like variant humans in the feed and stuff like that. And I still have an interesting character back around the back of my head, someone who cooks and would take that kind of chef feed and stuff like that. But I didn't go for that because the more I played around with it, I thought, I'm not feeling this character. I'm not. They sound kind of interesting from a. If I were playing them in BG3, it'd be fine. But I was trying to find that space where this character and I kind of go into them and where they kind of meet and would they be interesting to play and inhabit. I wasn't feeling it. And I decided to go a slightly different, slightly sillier route. But my favourite kind of D&D wizard is a character who's not a wizard but thinks they're a wizard. That is a great concept. The one I was going to do, so essentially it's the character I was considering playing, and I still will play them, I think, at some point. I wanted to play a not necessarily retired character, but I wanted to play someone who'd been a stay-at-home dad. I wanted to play someone who, like a human who had married maybe like an orc or something like that. Someone with a shorter lifespan. And she had gone off and was like the battlefield apothecary or something like that. He'd raised the kids. Kids have gone off and been to wizard school or whatever it is kids do in D&D, and they're now established and doing their things. And he's now at home. And maybe his wife's died, maybe he hasn't. I haven't quite nailed that one down. But the point is, he was kind of alone in the house, and he thought, "What am I going to do now?" And he thought, well, let's take up a hobby, and has decided to learn magic. That was the character I wanted to play. So he would have like that cooking feat, because essentially he's been doing all the home cooking for all these years. So he kind of warm and cozy kind of character going out into the world of, I've got a spell book. He's in his, I don't know, late 40s, early 50s or something like that. And then it's like, well, and now I'm a level 1 wizard. I still think it'd be fun to play. But it just didn't. I didn't feel him in this campaign. So what I ended up going with instead is it is slightly sillier. It is slightly sillier, but the tone and what the feeling I'm getting from the other characters is slightly sillier is kind of good. What I've gone for, I was considering orc. I do like playing orc and half orc characters, but I didn't go for it. What I've gone for is I have gone for a. Let me show it on here. So that is the D&D Beyond link, and I will just pull that up on my screen as well. I could share my screen. Let's do that. That's sensible. It might be a bit small/big. Let's see what happens if I just share my screen on this one. So yeah, that's bloody tiny. How do I change the size of everything? I've rearranged something on my monitor, so I've changed the resolution, and it's going to be way too tiny for you, and I need to change the zoom a bit and do some tinkering with that. Let's do that. So this is the character I'm going to be playing, and let's Let's zoom that in a little bit more. How's that? So I didn't go wizard in the end. I did go cleric, but I went for a kind of a wizardy cleric. So I have gone for a kobold cleric. Who is the? Is it Tempest? Is the? I need to get the names right on this one. So yeah, Tempest Domain. Uh, what? It's Jesse. Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, the glasses, the hair, the beard. Yeah, that's fair. Uh, oh dear. So yeah, so I've gone for this kind of this tempesty cleric, and I've got I've just had to go for a slightly northern accent on this one. So the name kind of works with the kind of northern twang of it. So it's Grick Maravek, Storm Shaman of the Frostsnoot clan. Um, I had this urge to go for the squeaky kobold voice, but I decided not. I decided him to be a kind of rough around the edges, slightly sweary. Um, Kobold, northern accents, throwing lightning around and, messing people up. I think that could be good. So this is the character I'm going to play on this one, and we'll see how they go. So they are quite high on insight, intelligence, wisdom, low on charisma. I feel that's sometimes a cheat for me when I play D&D or in BG3 as well. Especially in BG3, there's an urge to go with the high charisma characters because then you can talk your way out of anything. And actually, I think sometimes that's less fun. Getting into tricky situations and not being able to talk your way out of them leads to more chaos, and more chaos is good fun. So that's what I've gone for. So in theory, he's going to be good at insight and perception and the like, and he's got good knowledge. But in terms of his negotiating skills, he is going to be shockingly bad at these things. So I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to playing him. And as I said, I've not actually played real D&D for a long time, and even longer since I played as a player. So that is going to be a lot of fun. And I will report in on how that's going. What else? What else is going on? So we're kind of leading up to Christmas. That's weird to say because it feels like it was the summer not so long ago. Yes, I know that's how time works, but somehow it's freaking November, and Christmas will be upon us sooner than we think. So I'm thinking about the kind of stuff I want to do on this one. I don't think just because of life being as chaotic as it is right now and things that are already on my to-do list, I don't think I'm going to be able to release a specifically festive piece of content out there for Little But Fierce, or for anything else for that matter. I want to. What I really want to do, and I've had the idea for a couple of years now, is I would like to do something that's kind of Christmas movie related. Specifically, I would like to do a Home Alone style one shot. I think that could be an awful lot of fun. Equally, Die Hard would be fun to do, but I think Home Alone would be particularly fun to do as a one shot, or something of that nature. Low level characters, maybe level 0 characters, so really, really limited in their skills, but stuck in a wizard mansion or something like that, defending their house against invaders. I think something like that could be good fun. But I'm not sadly not going to be able to put all that together and do it in time. I can see what the next 2 months are going to be like, and it's gonna be busy, and I'm not going to give it the time it deserves. Alas. But what I do want to do is, so back when I was a teacher, I would always do the last lesson of term before Christmas, certainly before Christmas, summer, and occasionally Easter. I would do a quiz. I would do like a pub quiz style quiz. Clearly not actually a pub quiz, because pub quizzes really do deserve alcohol, which is frowned upon somewhat in secondary school teaching. But because I still do make education resources of stuff I made back when I was a teacher, or just things that I think people would want and need to use in the classroom is last year I put together a Christmas quiz, which I sold through the TESS website and on my own website, because coming up with a quiz is hard, and inevitably, if you're a teacher and you are struggling to get to the end of term, the last thing you want to do is take time to write a quiz. So having a nice one pre-prepared and available for like a quid on a website is grand. So I'll be doing the same this year. And I'll make sure that's ready in time for my music would stop. When did my music stop? I've just realised I'm sitting here in absolute silence. Let's do that on shuffle and get that going again. Maybe it's not on loop. That's what it is. I have the thing not on a loop, so it stopped when it got to the end. There we go. Train of thought. Train of thought has derailed. It's Christmas quiz. Yeah. So I'll be producing one anyway. And I thought what might be fun is to actually do a streamed Christmas quiz. Now, obviously, that depends on people. What would be deeply tragic would be doing a stream of a Christmas quiz to a basically empty room. So I think it would be very dependent on number of people following me at the time and general availability. I think I will get people to, in some manner, register interest if people want to do it, But I think it might be a nice, fun thing to do of an evening. There could be alcohol involved. We shall see. But I think it'd be nice to do as a thing leading up to Christmas. And we'll see where we go from there. But that's what I'm currently thinking, that a quiz night might be nice. I know a few people who do pub quiz style stuff streamed. And it kind of matches my style of the way I do quizzes. So I think that could be a lot of fun. And clearly it would just be for fun. Well, I could keep track of points and stuff like that, Yeah. It's less about the winning and more about the insanity of the quiz itself and the fun that is had along the way. So that's what I'm thinking. I'll probably do that at some point in December. It might be the quiz. I'll have to decide whether it's the quiz that I actually release online or not. It might be that plus some harder questions, because obviously the quiz I write for schools is pitched at a secondary school level. So in terms of knowledge, in terms of difficulty, and in terms of kind of life stuff, if I'm writing a quiz for kids, in terms of, if I reference an older film, it has to be something that's an absolute freaking classic. Whereas if I am referencing films for a quiz for adults, I have a much broader canvas to play with, and I can go for far more obscure stuff in terms of geek knowledge. So it might be based on the quiz that I'm going to release in the lead up to Christmas, but I'll add some extra stuff in, especially for an older, geekier audience. That's what I'm thinking here. That's what I'm thinking. But we shall see how it goes. Because as I said, life is kind of in flux right now. It was busy to begin with. And then this whole kind of family emergency thing has just thrown everything a little bit. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see. It's all good. So I think we will kind of wrap it up there, is where I'm leaning to with this, because I'm kind of running out of steam, and I'm sorry for that. That's it. It's just been a crazy week. And rather than me rabbiting on for another 5 minutes and just getting slower and less able to function, let's start to wrap this up. So in terms of things, the normal kind of things apply. So if you would like to support me for stuff, please do take a look at my website. Let's point to the right place. No, that's me. Somewhere down there. There we go. dcbradshaw.com is where you can find all of my stuff. I'm currently doing a big push. Little But Fierce is somehow really close to a gold bestseller on DriveThruRPG. So gold bestseller requires 501 sales, and we're on something like 454, I think, is where we're at. So we're getting pretty damn close. So I'm hoping that we can try and hit that by the end of the year. That would be really, really cool. So if you know people who are interested in role playing and maybe want to play with their kids, or they're a teacher or a guardian or something like that, and they want to play with kids, or people who generally might want a more accessible set of rules, please push their direction. I have Ko-Fi, I have Patreon. Ko-Fi money goes towards supporting the Tabletop RPG Creator Directory. As you can see by that, we are 57% towards the funding needed for the remainder of this year. If not, it just comes out of my pocket, and that's absolutely fine. Also, Throne. I don't tend to talk about this because it makes me feel I don't like asking for money, But should you be an incredibly kind and generous individual with some free cash, I do have a Throne website, which is the link is available from the About section on this page, and I will chuck it in there if it wants to load up, basically. Let's grab the link and chuck it in here if people particularly want to. I've not gone bananas with what's on my Throne website. Essentially, what I want to get is I want to get a Stream Deck at some point for tinkering with settings and stuff like that and changing between scenes. But also, annoyingly, my AirPods are on the way out. I've had a set of AirPods for about 5 years, and they last about 45-50 minutes now. When I charge the battery, part of them is starting to go. So I've chucked it on there. Should kind and considerate souls wish to contribute towards replacement AirPods or me getting a Stream Deck, that is just absolutely awesome. But no expectation there. No expectation at all, because everyone is busy, everyone is poor. And cost of living, especially in the UK, is pretty rough right now. So there we go. Right. Oh, God, that ended on a downer. Didn't like that. Ugh. What's coming up next? So I'll do a regular stream on Monday. We'll see what next week looks like. I might do another gaming one. So with a board game of some sort, maybe Munchkin or something like that. We shall see how we do. And I'd like to do a writing stream at some point. It's just things aren't aligning in terms of finding a good evening to do it. But we'll see how we get on with that. Okay, right. I will let you get on with your day or your evening or your sleep, depending on what stage of the day you are at and where you are in the world. So I will let you get on with that. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful weekend when it comes, and I wish you all the best. Take care. Bye.